Hello, UAGC students. Welcome to today's Facebook Live event. I'm Rebecca Good, the Community Manager for UAGC, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. We have a fantastic session lined up with some incredible guests who are experts on our Career Services team. And if you're not familiar with Career Services, they are a team of professionals that are trained to work with you in your career planning and help you become more job search savvy. So for those of you who are a UAG student or alum, you have access to that service for life. Super exciting. So joining us today are Rebecca Davis and Nicole Methvin. They're here to share their top tips and tricks on how to create a standout resume that will boost your chances of catching the eye of employers. So Rebecca, can you please introduce yourself first?
Yes, thanks for having us today. I'm Rebecca Davis, the Manager of Career Services here at UAGC. I've been with the Career Services team and working in career services for over 10 years, but prior to that, I was in staffing and recruiting. So I was on the other side. I was the recruiter looking through thousands of resumes, trying to find the best candidates for the positions we were hiring for. So love to bring in that past experience and share kind of like the inside tips with our UAGC students and alumni. But I do manage our career team. We have some amazing career advisors, and one of them today is Nicole. And then our team also has our employer outreach specialists. So they work with the recruiters day in and day out, trying to get them to come to UAGC, talk to you through virtual information sessions, coming to the career fairs, all that fun stuff. So thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Nicole, would you like to go next?
I sure would. So, hello, everybody. My name is Nicole Methvin, and like Rebecca said, I'm actually one of the career advisors with UAGC Career Services. I have been with UAGC Career Services for almost 3 years now, and I've worked in career services industry at different institutions for almost 7 years. And like Rebecca, I actually also have done corporate recruiting in the past. So I also really try to leverage that as much as I possibly can when I'm working with the students and everything too, especially when it pertains to resume writing. So I just completed my master's degree here at UAGC in education, higher ed. So that was super exciting. And I'm super excited to be here today. I'm super excited to geek out on all things resumes. So this will be fun.
It will. Thank you so much for being here, Nicole. I really appreciate you both jumping in here. You came, I was like, I need you guys for a cool resume event, and you came together with some amazing tips, and I appreciate you being here. And again, I am so excited. So before we dive into some tips and tricks, let's start with a quick overview of what we'll be covering today as you guys kind of keep pouring into Facebook. We'll be discussing how to build an effective resume, including formatting, content, and how to tailor your resume for different job applications. And then after that, we'll be happy to open the floor for a Q&A session where you can ask Rebecca and Nicole any questions that you might have. However, I do have a lot of questions lined up for them, so we may cover some of your questions during that Q&A session. So plus, stick around until the end because we're going to be giving away 5 of these awesome tote bags here. Hopefully you could see them. So that's just for randomly people participating in the chat. So leave comments, say hello, ask questions if you need to, and you'll have a chance to be selected to win one of those tote bags. So let's get started with our tips on building a stellar resume here. So here's my first question for you two. What is the ideal length for a resume, and why is it important to keep it concise?
Perfect. I love this question because it also is very dependent on, and a lot of what we're going to be saying is very dependent on your individual like career goals. So just keep that in mind as we're kind of talking through our resume tips today. But specifically with it as it pertains to the length of a resume, I like to say, the ideal length for a resume is typically 1 page, especially for our early career professionals, or for those with less than 10 years of experience. And so for more experienced professionals or those with, extensive accomplishments and extensive, work histories, a 2-page resume could definitely be appropriate. And so keeping a resume concise is very important for several reasons. So I always tell students, put yourself in the shoes of the recruiters because they're sifting through hundreds and hundreds of resumes per week. And so a lot of times recruiters and managers often only spend a few seconds initially scanning that resume document. And so by keeping that resume concise, you highlight only the most pertinent information, really making it easier for the employers to see how good of a fit you are for that specific job that you're applying to. And so limiting the length of your resume helps you to avoid repeating information or including, irrelevant details that might dilute the impact of your key qualifications. And so really the ultimate length of the resume and the goal is to create a resume that is clear, focused, concise, tailored to the job that you're applying for, and really just making it easy as possible for the employers to really see why you're a strong fit for that specific opportunity.
Those are some great tips. For those of you who are joining the chat, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Don't worry about taking notes if you don't have time to right now. This session will be recorded on Facebook and will be available as soon as this ends. So you're welcome to watch it back, take notes, or just have it handy for whenever you do start working on your resume or updating it, as Caroline mentioned in the comments. So thank you all again for being here. And thank you so much, Nicole, for that awesome answer. So next question that I have for you is, how can you effectively highlight your value to a potential employer in your resume?
I'll take this one. And Nicole mentioned it briefly just a second ago. And the secret is tailor your resume. If there is one thing you take away from today, it is the importance of tailoring your resume to every single job you apply to. And it seems like a lot of work to do that, and it is. However, it is the best way to highlight your value to a potential employer. It's obvious to an employer when you're sending this 100 resumes or 60 resumes over and over and over again, and just blasting out there to job postings. So if I break it down a little bit, if a recruiter must choose between a resume that expresses interest in that specific position, usually at the top of the document, outlines the skills that match the qualifications, or a generic resume where they must guess if your skills match, they will always choose the tailored resume candidate to move forward next in the process every time. So we'll go into a lot more detail about it today because it is that important, but essentially you don't want employers guessing if you're qualified for the role. You want to spell it out for them with your thoughtful professional summary, listing your transferable skills, outline how your previous work experience is applicable to the job you're applying to, and then of course, highlighting your degree and courses on your resume. So tailor your resume.
I love that. I love that. If you take anything from this, tailor your resume. That's a perfect tip. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I appreciate that. My next question is, so what is the primary goal of a resume? If we want to just kind of break it down, what's the primary goal to secure an interview rather than the job itself? Why is that?
Perfect. I would love to tackle this one. So the primary goal of a resume is to secure an interview rather than the job itself, because really what the resume's purpose is, it serves as an introduction of who you are to that potential employer. So it's your opportunity to make a strong first impression. You want to showcase your qualifications, demonstrate that you are a viable candidate, worth considering for the position. And so employers receive many, many resumes for job openings. When I was a recruiter, I would receive hundreds upon hundreds of resumes. So usually what recruiters do is they use resumes to quickly screen and shortlist candidates who meet the basic qualifications and seem like a good potential fit. And the resume's purpose is to get you past that initial stage and into the interview. And so we're going to talk a lot about like the key components of a resume, but basically the resume is, a summary of your skills, your experiences, your achievements that really directly align. Again, there's tailoring to the job that you're applying for. It doesn't really provide the full picture of who you are as a candidate and who your personality is. And that's ultimately like why the interview is so necessary. but the resume does highlight enough relevant information to really make employers want to learn more about who you are. And so the interview is really where you get to expand on the points that you made in your resume and demonstrate who you are, who is your personality, and prove that you're ultimately, the best fit for that position that you're applying for.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. That makes a lot of sense. I love the goal of seeing the interview first rather than thinking of the big picture. I think that helps make it not so overwhelming too.
Yeah.
Right.
But
100%.
so my next question, what strategies can you use to capture the reader's attention with your resume? I know we talked a little bit about it, but I'd love to hear some details.
Yeah, so Nicole and I mentioned that recruiters receive hundreds of resumes. And so research has been done on this. Where does an employer's eye go when they're looking at a resume in that short time frame? Research shows that employers, and it varies, the different studies vary, but recruiters spend anywhere from 6 to 8 seconds to 30 seconds reviewing a resume for the first time. So your goal is really to capture their attention as soon as possible. Now, when they did the research and they followed the recruiter's eyes, it obviously spent the most time at the top of the document. So that means your most important information should be at the top of the resume to grab their attention. Once you have their attention, then they can read through your document to learn more. So that first impression is really incredibly important. So some additional strategies, and Nicole mentioned one of them, keep that resume if you can to one page. Some rules of thumb, every 10 years, add a page of work experience. But if you can keep it short and concise, that definitely helps. Again, put that most important information at the top, like a list of your most valuable skills that are tailored to that position at the top of your resume. And again, that helps the employer not have to dig through your resume, because they won't, to dig through your resume to find out if you're qualified for the role. And then another tip can be to include an impactful professional summary with strong action verbs at the top of your document. And then finally, a well-organized resume does matter. So keep that in mind.
Those are great tips. I feel like so many of these could help, especially knowing the time frame that people are going to be looking at your resume. That's wild to think of. So that really makes a big difference on putting that important stuff at the top. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So let's talk a little bit about the key components of an effective resume. How should you highlight your academic background and any notable achievements on your resume?
I really love this question because I probably get asked it like what feels like 20 times a day with my students. So I love talking about this. So I would definitely say, obviously you're going to hear us say, keep it, concise. You want to showcase your accomplishments clearly. You want to showcase your qualifications and achievements clearly and concisely. So one thing we are going to be sharing later on, probably in the Facebook Live, is some of our resume resources that we offer through Career Services. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is we actually have a phenomenal resume module that does a phenomenal job of breaking down the different key components of having an effective resume and how to format that, appropriately for your resume document. So just to kind of like list off some of the key components of an effective resume, one thing that you'll want to start off with is your contact information. You want to include your name, your phone number, your email address. If you have a LinkedIn profile URL, that's always a good thing to include too. Like Rebecca was saying before, your professional summary. So like a brief 2 to 3 sentence summary of your career goals, your key skills that are, again, tailored to that specific job. Skills. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but highlighting any relevant technical, transferable, interpersonal skills that, again, are matching to that job description that you're applying to. Education. So any degrees in reverse chronological order, with the institution, the degree, the major, your graduation date, any type of relevant classes that you've taken during your time with like UAGC or any other degrees that you have had obtained. Work experience section, this is a big one, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, how to, write strong bullet points within this section later, but you want to list off any relevant work experience in reverse chronological order, include the title, your job title, the company, the dates that you were there for. And then outside of that, any type of like achievements and awards. So like academic honors, awards, significant projects that are relevant to the job. Any type of certifications that you've done, like if you've done a LinkedIn certification that you feel is relevant to the role that you're applying to, include it on your resume. Any type of professional development opportunities, include that on your resume as well. Volunteer experience is also another great thing to include, as well as like community involvement that showcases some additional skills that you might have. And then in terms of how to highlight your academic background, it's about positioning when it comes to the resume, in my opinion. So, for example, place your education, near the top if you're a recent graduation or if it's highly relevant, to the job that you're applying for. Otherwise, if you feel like you have work experience that carries more weight and is more relevant to the job that you're applying for, you can always list the work experience before your education section and then have the education underneath. And then in terms of like achievements as it relates to your academic background, you can, highlight any, like I was saying, any type of awards, academic honors, courses, research, academic projects that you've done, any leadership positions that you've held during your academic journey. But I really think by like effectively showcasing your academic background and your achievements, you're really making a strong case for your candidacy and it helps you to increase, your chance of landing that interview. And it shows who you are outside of work and school as well too, and what you like to do for fun. That's always fun too to include on your resume.
Right? I love to see resumes that have hobbies listed, like video games or something, like
Totally.
really cool stuff. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I feel like I
Yeah.
know the person even better. Well, thank you so much. We've talked about skills, adding skills to the top. We've talked about academic background, but what is the best way to showcase your work experience or any internships or job related accomplishments?
Yes. So the first thing to do is start with listing them in reverse chronological order. So start with your most recent job first and then work down from there. It's really important to make sure, and this gets missed quite frequently, but make sure your job titles and your employer's name are very clear, even highlighted in bold. Employers want to know that. They want to know where you've worked before, what your previous job titles were. List internships and volunteer work the same as if it was a job. So especially if the work involved job related skills, this is especially important for our career changers. And your internships and volunteer work, list those, especially if they are related to the industry you're trying to break into. You can list volunteer work and internships in your experience section. For each job and internship over the last 10 years, 3 to 5 bullet points each. I see some people list 10, they probably won't be read. So try and rule with them 3 to 5. You can go 6, but not too much more than that. And then each bullet in your work experience section should start with a very strong action verb. So those would be, and we've got great lists, or you could Google great lists, but some strong action verbs to start those bullets off with are led, increased, managed, developed, initiated. Really try and avoid passive verbs like responsible for. It's not as exciting. That doesn't really like grab the reader's attention. And then in your work experience, it's important to focus on quantifying your achievements and results. So as an example, managed a team of 5 staff to conduct a competitive market analysis and customer feedback survey. Good, but take it a step further. What did it result in? Resulting in cost-saving recommendations that reduced expenses by $10,000. So in this bullet, we've listed 2 quantifying achievements, and that's what helps you stand out from someone else who maybe said that they were involved in a competitive market analysis. Great, but take it a step further. What does it mean? What did you achieve? That will really stand out to a recruiter when you're talking about your work experience.
That's so much better.
Yeah,
Get
to the next level.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. So in addition to that, how can you effectively list key technical and soft skills that are pertinent to the job market?
Another question I absolutely love, because a lot of times when I'm talking with my students on my coaching calls, like they're like, well, I'm not super qualified for this opportunity, but a lot of times students intrinsically have those skill sets, but they just don't know how to best market it. So there are so many amazing ways for you to market technical skills, interpersonal skills, transferable skills on the resume document. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but a lot of times students are just need a little bit of clarification as to what is the difference between technical, interpersonal, transferable. And so ultimately, listing these types of skills on your resume, it's crucial for being able to demonstrate, your qualifications and really making a strong case for why you are a good fit for a specific job. So like I was saying before, I kind of want to just kind of give a brief overview as the difference between those different types of skill sets. So with like the technical skills, those are skills that you can kind of gain that are kind of more hands-on. So like, for example, if you're building out a PowerPoint presentation in Microsoft PowerPoint, you're utilizing a technical skill to do that. Or if you're building out a financial model in Excel, you're utilizing Excel. That is a technical skill that you can absolutely highlight on your resume. If you're conducting data analysis using Python or any type of like project management system like Trello, I know our team used Trello board too to like manage our projects. That's a type of technical skill. Now, soft skills and transferable skills are skill sets that students are, like I was saying, they intrinsically have them, but they don't know how to best market those on the resume. And I've also heard from a lot of students and graduates that they don't feel like they are as important as the technical skills, but we're hearing from employers from across all industries that soft skills and transferable skills are highly valued in this competitive market and in this competitive workforce. And so some of the types of soft skills that a lot of times I'm encouraging students to kind of integrate into their resume document are things like time management, leadership, relationship building, communication, strategic planning, problem solving. And so how do you integrate these types of skills, both technical, interpersonal, transferable? How do you integrate that into your resume document? There's a couple different ways that I typically encourage students on how to do this. So one is just creating a skills section. So you can create either a skills or a core competency section on your resume that highlight a good combination of these skills. You can also integrate it into the summary of qualifications at the top of your resume. Again, you're going to hear me say it till we're blue in the face, but like tailoring those skills, tailor to the job that you're applying for. And then also taking that and incorporating maybe some of those skills in like the bullet points that Rebecca was referencing as well. So integrating it into that work experience section. I think one thing too, as it relates to skills and the applicant tracking systems that a lot of times employers use when they're hiring on candidates is you want to include those industry specific keywords. And a lot of times those are the skills that we were just kind of talking about. So really, it's so important to include these different types of skills on your resume because it showcases, a healthy, balanced mix of, the hands-on technical skills and the interpersonal transferable skills. And it also helps employers and recruiters to really quickly assess your qualifications. And it also increases, the chances of you passing through those automated screenings and applicant tracking systems too.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole. So much good information to write down and take note of. Like I mentioned, this will be recorded on Facebook, so you'll have this reference to come back to. But those were some amazing key tips. So thank you so much. We talked a little bit about including rewards earlier in your resume, but why is it important to include any certifications and awards on your resume, and how can they set you apart?
Yes, great question. It is so important to include those on your resume. And one of the big reasons to highlight awards and certifications is it shows your dedication to your industry and your desire to improve and stay competitive in your field. It will really set you apart. And also some jobs may require or prefer certain certifications. So adding those to your resume helps the recruiter know you meet the minimum or preferred qualifications of that job. Awards and certifications really give you that competitive edge against other applicants. So if someone has the same degree as you, they have similar work experience, awards and certifications is really going to help set you apart. And they're especially important if you're making a career change. So for our career changers, you may not have the previous work experience that directly aligns to the role that you're applying to. However, highlighting awards shows your dedication and commitment as an employee, outstanding, employee. That's what recruiters want to hire. Sometimes if you're missing some of those skills, but they know that you're a great employee, they can train you on the skills. And then certifications show that while your work experience may not match, you have gained the skills needed to perform the job. So great sections to include on your resume.
I love that so much. We talked a little bit about job experience, but when is it appropriate to highlight specific courses that are relevant to the job or industry?
Another great question. I love these. Because this is something that I feel like I talk about daily with my students because they don't really see the value in adding relevant courses, but I'm always telling them, add them on there. There's so many amazing benefits to adding, specific courses to your resume, especially when it's relevant to the job or industry that you're looking to go into. And so a lot of times when you're including those specific classes on your resume, it's really beneficial, especially when you're trying to demonstrate, relevant knowledge and fill in those experience gaps, kind of like what Rebecca was talking about previously. And again, aligning with the job requirements. And so for like my recent graduates and students, a lot of times if they don't have a ton of work experience, they have limited experiences, highlighting those courses on the resume really allows for them to showcase their knowledge and skills. Even though they might not have a ton of work experience, it shows to the employer, hey, these are some of the skills that I'm learning in the classroom. I'm a very strong candidate because I was able to apply it in the classroom. And then also for like my career changers, a lot of times when we're working with our students, they're looking to make a career pivot, like what Rebecca was talking about earlier as well. So if they're looking to go into a new field, by listing off some of those relevant classes, it shows to the employer that, you've gained the necessary knowledge for that career transition. And that also kind of helps to fill the gap as well, because the coursework highlights, it helps you to showcase the new skills that you have developed to kind of fill in the gaps on that resume. And so another thing I also encourage students to do as well, in addition to including, relevant coursework, if they're looking to add in some more context to their resume, adding in an academic project section is always a phenomenal idea as well. You can just put it right underneath that education section. You could add in, the name of the class, maybe the name of the assignment. Like if you were working on a discussion board where you did a lot of cross collaboration, maybe you had a group, discussion board that you were working on. You utilized teamwork, you used time management, you used planning skills to accomplish, what it was to get that academic project done. And you can even include some of the technical skills that maybe you were learning in your accounting class that you were using to build out that discussion board. And so that's also another really great way to highlight what it is that you're learning in the classroom on that resume document.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much, Nicole. What does involvement in professional organizations indicate to potential employers?
The being involved in a professional organization, even a club and organization, especially a club and organization at UAGC, there are so many benefits. We could do a whole webinar on it, but we're just talking about resume today. So for those professional organizations, those clubs, those organizations you're involved in at UAGC, similar to awards and certifications, involvement in an organization showcases your dedication, time, and effort, especially if it's industry specific or it aligns with some of your career goals. Additionally, it also lets an employer know your networking, collaboration, leadership, and initiative skills. So they can really draw a lot from you being involved in a professional organization, and you can highlight some of those skills at the top of your resume too that I mentioned.
Exactly. There are so many great tips in this event, and I feel like we're only halfway through. This is amazing. Thank you both so much. And the people in the Facebook comments are super excited about these tips as well.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Great.
I've been reading.
Good. Yay. I love that.
So my next question is, how can extracurricular activities demonstrate well-roundedness and soft skills?
Yes. So extracurricular activities. I have to say that word so slow because if I get talking fast, it's like a tongue twister for me.
Yeah.
Extracurricular activities demonstrates, honestly, it demonstrates well-roundedness and transferable skills on the resume by really kind of offering more of a holistic view, of your abilities beyond academics, beyond your work experiences. So like kind of piggybacking off of what Rebecca was just talking about, say, for example, you're involved in a club on like UAGC Connect. Maybe you're in a leadership position in one of those clubs or organizations. So right there, that leadership showcases very strong transferable leadership skills, that could be transferred over into a full-time role in the workforce. Say you're involved in like a volunteer experience or community involvement and you're, managing the event, you're managing putting together an event. So again, like organizing events, time management, those are all great skill sets that you can integrate into your resume by being involved in an extracurricular activity. And again, like if you think about it, we're all working, you have families, you have personal lives, you're trying to balance school with everything. And then also if you are taking on an extracurricular activity, like that right there also shows to the employer that you have very strong time management skills. You're balancing all of these activities and still achieving success. So definitely integrating time management on that resume too, from the extracurricular activities that you're involved in, is a great way to showcase some, again, additional transferable skills that you have. And overall, having those extracurricular activities on your resume, it just showcases to the employer like the diverse interests. We were kind of talking about, what do you like to do for fun outside of work and school? Like it shows, your diverse interests. It shows the different types of variety of activities that you like to be involved in. Shows community engagement, that you want to give back to the community if you're involved in like those volunteer activities or what have you. And then it also shows like your passion and drive. It gets the employer to see like who you are, like I was saying, kind of outside of, your academic journey and outside of your previous work experiences. So ultimately, extracurriculars, again, me saying it slow, can really help to strengthen your resume by highlighting skills, highlighting qualities that really complement your professional experience, and also help to show that you are, a very well-rounded candidate.
So perfect. Thank you so much, Nicole, and perfect execution of that word both times.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was trying very hard with it.
I love that. So let's go over a few do's and don'ts for resume building. This was a big one. What font and text size should you use to ensure your resume is easy to read?
Yes, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Yes.
So stick with professional fonts, Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman. Keep it as professional looking as possible. The body of your text should be no smaller than 10.5 and no larger than 12. I don't know about you, but anything 10 or smaller, I cannot see. And so we do not want to make it harder than it already is for the recruiters. So keep that font at a 10.5 or 12 to avoid eye strain. And remember, recruiters have limited time when reviewing a resume. So having that consistent, reliable, professional formatting really does make a difference. And then you'll also have headings on your resume. It's not an exact science, but a 14 to a 16 font size would work. And then your name and your contact information should be 18 to 24. It can definitely be on the larger side. When Nicole was talking earlier about contact information, I was thinking as a recruiter, the amount of times that a phone number or email address was not included on a resume or a name was mind-boggling. Like it's just the most important thing is your contact information. So make sure it's there and it's bold and it can be 18 to 24 font size.
So how do you both feel about Comic Sans?
Hard to know.
That's a hard pass.
Let me mark that off my list.
We feel strongly about that, actually.
Very strong. If you didn't pick up on that.
These are some fake smiles I'm seeing, but I love the passion. That's so funny. So on to my real next question. How can you personalize your resume to reflect your unique qualities?
Yes. This is a great question. We do get this a lot in career services as well. So when considering how to personalize your resume, it is important first to think about your own career goals and the industry that you're trying to get into. So many industries like business, finance, healthcare, social services, which I know a lot of our students are interested in,
Yeah.
do prefer a more traditional resume style. So when in doubt, stick with traditional style. Your LinkedIn profile or your e-portfolio and your interview, those are ways that you can really showcase your personality and your flair more. And career services can also help you with that as well with your LinkedIn and e-portfolio. However, the bullets can be a great way to talk about your unique qualities and emphasize your unique accomplishments by quantifying those achievements. So adding the numbers in, adding the name of the projects you worked on, really taking those bullets to the next level can showcase what you have, highlighting projects you've worked on, the volunteer work we've talked about that, get that on your resume, extracurricular activities, UAGC clubs, organizations, involvement in the Chance Peer Mentoring Program. Those are awesome ways that you can showcase your unique qualities and experience.
Great answer, Rebecca. And this is a big one that I think comes up often, but why should you avoid relying heavily on internet templates for your resume?
Yes, yes. You have to be so careful with these
Yes.
when the templates on the internet. One of the biggest reasons to be cautious to avoid these templates is because often they contain inflexible layouts and text boxes. It makes it incredibly difficult to update and change your resume. Also, applicant tracking systems, these are the systems that most organizations are using to move students through the application and interview process. So these are automated systems will not recognize the information in those templates. So that was part of the reason that I could not see oftentimes the contact information on a resume is because if it was in a text box or a table, the applicant tracking system it just couldn't read it. It was like it didn't exist. A lot of times we see skills listed in those text boxes, and unfortunately it's like you didn't even put skills on your resume. The ATS system will not recognize it and oftentimes just automatically reject it. And so when you are quick to get a thanks but no thanks email back, that can be one of the reasons. The applicant tracking system can just not read your resume enough to find out if you meet the minimum qualifications for that role. And so that's why those templates are a no-no. However, we have a solution. Career Services did create some basic we call them templates, but basic Word documents that it's easy for you to plug in your own information. Just delete what we wrote, plug your information in, and those will not be rejected by applicant tracking systems. They are ATS friendly, and a lot of those live in Handshake, which you can access through your student portal or by contacting your career advisor. We also have some specific to every major as well.
I love that. That's a great tip. Not only did you explain why it's not okay to use it, but we have an amazing resource available as and something to use instead. So that's great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Tammy mentions in the comments, this is great information to know. Thank you for letting us know this.
Oh, good.
Thank
Inside
you so
tips,
much.
hopefully. Some inside
Yes.
tips.
Yes. And thank you for being here, Tammy, and everyone else in the comments. We appreciate all of your positive feedback on the information that Rebecca and Nicole is giving us here today. So one of my big pet peeves for myself and when I'm also reviewing other resumes,
Yeah.
how can grammatical errors and typos negatively impact your resume?
Oh, Rebecca. I'm going back to like my recruiting days, but that
Yes.
would be like one of the first things that I would notice on a resume is if there was a grammatical error or typo. And so a lot of times, it can harm, your job application if you have grammatical errors or typos on your resume, because your resume is often that first impression that the employers have of you. And so mistakes like typos and grammatical errors, they might suggest, a lack of attention to detail or carelessness and unprofessionalism. And with how competitive today's job market is, even the smallest of errors might even disqualify you from landing an interview. And so employers most likely would favor candidates who, have a polished resume without any errors on the document. And so I'm always telling my students, so how do you avoid these errors? So always proofread your resume document multiple times and read it out loud, read it out loud to yourself. The other thing that I encourage students to use are, grammatical tools. So like Grammarly, spell check tools, but don't solely rely on those. You want to kind of make sure that you're also proofreading and using the tools in conjunction, and also just seek feedback. Maybe have a peer review your resume, or one of your friendly career advisors here in Career Services review your resume. We're reviewing them on the daily. You can always email them over to us. We're happy to take a look at them for you, because like I was saying, in a competitive job market, you want to make sure that you're presenting that polished, error-free resume, because it's ultimately crucial in making that strong first impression with the recruiter and really showcasing your professionalism. Oh, shoot. I think, Rebecca, you might be on mute. I'm so sorry.
I sure am. Thank you so much. I was expecting you to read my lips.
No, I was nervous that my internet dropped. So I'm like, oh no.
No, it was me. For those of you in the comments, I'm a little under the weather today, so I keep having to mute myself to clear my throat. But in the comments, I will read it out loud now. Nora says, this is awesome info. Thank you all for sharing these helpful tips and tricks. And then Via Mulkin says, this is great as I consider a career move.
Yes.
So exciting. And thank you all for posting in your questions too. We will definitely reach out after my little Q&A with them. We'll do a little lightning round of questions from you all too. So keep them coming. So next question's about a disorganized resume. What are the consequences of having one?
Yes. So like we keep saying, recruiters only have a few seconds to review that initial resume. So an organized resume is incredibly important. It really does matter. Recruiters will not dig through your resume to find out the information they're looking for to determine if you're qualified. Therefore, it is your job to outline for them in an organized fashion why you were the best candidate for that role. So you really have to spell it out. You can't assume that they know if you've worked at this job, you have these qualifications. Never make assumptions, just assume they don't know and spell it out for them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Next question, why should you avoid including an objective statement or references on your resume?
Yes, I also really love answering this question. So with both the objective statements and the references, so kind of like what we were talking about before, you're really trying to keep that resume concise to 1 or 2 pages max. And so sometimes when you're trying to include an objective statement or your references, they might take up space that could ultimately just be better used for showcasing your skills or achievements. And then specifically as it relates to your objective statements, in my opinion, they can be a little outdated just because they're no longer favored as they ultimately state the obvious. Your goal is to get the job. That's why you're submitting in your resume for that job application. And also with objective statements, sometimes they focus on your needs rather than what you can offer the employer or what you can offer the company. And so a better option for not having an objective statement, instead consider adding in that professional summary of qualifications that we've been referencing. Highlight those key qualifications and really what you bring to the role. Again, tailor it to the role. And then kind of going over to the referencing side of things, I think that with, references, it could be irrelevant early on if you have it on your resume. Employers don't need them necessarily at the initial stage of the application process. And also, a lot of times when you're filling out a job application, they'll have an entirely separate section dedicated to just filling out your references page. The other thing is too, as it relates to like the references that you are listing, you know, there might be some privacy concerns. So like listing them and sharing others' contact details without consent early on in the process might cause some issues. And so I always encourage students, you can create a separate references document and have it on hand just in case. And then also like another alternative that you can have with the references piece as it relates to being on your resume, you can either say like mention references available upon request or just leave them out entirely. And like I said, have a separate document for them. I think when it relates to both the objective statement and references, you really are going to want to focus in on like what matters. So again, like concentrating on those skills, the achievements, the experiences that ultimately align with the job that you're applying for, because like we've been saying, employers really prefer resumes that are concise and directly relevant. And so kind of skipping, you know, the objective statement, the references kind of allows you to maximize the space on your resume and present a stronger, more modernized resume.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole. And again, I do want to remind everyone in the comments here that this will be recorded. So as soon as this video is over, you can just push play and watch the whole thing again, or you can save it to your bookmarks and have it handy for when you do have some time to either create your resume or update one. So make sure you remember that. But this is such great info. Thank you so much again, Rebecca and Nicole. So I have just a few more questions for you. And let's talk about bullet points. We talked a little bit briefly about them earlier, but how can using strong verbs, responsibilities, and outcomes make your bullet points more effective?
This is something that I feel like I say this with every question that you ask me, but I feel like, you know, having strong bullet points on your resume can make or break your resume document. You know, and so Rebecca did a phenomenal job earlier, you know, highlighting the equation of having a strong verb plus responsibility plus outcome and integrating that into a lot of different areas of your resume document to really showcase your skill sets in a concise, detailed manner. And so they really, you know, using that equation in your resume bullet points can significantly ultimately enhance their effectiveness. So how I kind of like want to break it down is I want to talk about the strong verbs, the responsibilities, and the outcomes piece of these equations. And I also have an example too. I know Rebecca provided an example, but it's always good to have multiple examples that you can reference too. So with the strong verbs, like Rebecca was saying earlier, those strong verbs really grab your attention. They convey, you know, they clearly convey action. They make your accomplishments, they sound more dynamic, more proactive, which ultimately leads to a more lasting impression on the hiring managers and the recruiters. And so starting off with a strong verb really sets that decisive tone for the bullet point. And it also just instills confidence into that bullet point as well. You know, immediately showing that you are an active contributor rather than a passive participant is what I like to say. And then with the responsibilities piece of the equation, you know, clearly, obviously stating those responsibilities shows the scope of your work, but it also helps the recruiter understand what it is that you were doing, what you were accountable for. It gives them more context as to what it was that you were trying to accomplish in your previous role or in your current position. So it's really crucial to highlight this piece of the bullet point just because it can showcase that you're able to handle similar tasks in the future if that's potentially listed on the job that you're looking to go into. Again, you're going to hear us saying it again, but tailoring those responsibilities to align with that job that you're applying to can really help to demonstrate how your past experiences or your current experience is relevant to the new role that you're trying to go after. And then the outcomes piece of it. So that last piece of that equation. So really including those specific outcomes, achievements, quantifies your impact. Again, like what Rebecca was referencing earlier, quantifying your achievements is a very powerful thing to do. And writing strong bullet points allows you to do that. It shows and proves the effectiveness of your work. And I like to say it kind of turns your responsibilities into accomplishments that really shows the value that you have brought in your previous experiences. So ultimately, like when you're combining this equation, the strong verbs, the clear responsibilities, the specific outcomes, they create those powerful, concise bullet points that, again, really do a great job of effectively communicating like your contributions and value that you can bring to the organization. And so I do have a quick example that I just like to share with my students as well. So I'm just going to read it off here. So The basic bullet point here is handled customer service for the company. So if we apply that strong verb plus responsibility plus outcome equation to that, this is what the enhanced bullet point can look like. Resolved 50 plus customer inquiries daily, leading to a 20% increase in customer satisfaction scores and a 10% reduction in response time. So as you can see, there's a lot more details, there's quantifiable measures that's in there, and that just makes it that much stronger of a powerful accomplishment statement that can then show the employer why they should be hiring you at the end of the day.
I love that so much. I love being able to showcase your confidence through your resume. And it's such a huge difference when you show both of those examples, Nicole. Huge difference. Strong verbs, incredibly important. But what words would you avoid using in your bullet points and why?
Try so hard not to say duties. Like duties include responsible for, participated in. Those are very, like Nicole said, passive. It doesn't show that you're actively engaging in the work that you've done. So instead use strong verbs like achieved, generated, activated, led, managed, stronger. And if you're, when in doubt, you can always, there's hundreds and hundreds of them you can find on the internet or reach out to your career advisor.
Love that. Definitely reach out. Take advantage of these ladies if you can. They are amazing resources, if you can't tell right now. Thank you, Rebecca. So let's talk a little bit about the value of optimizing your resume. Why is resume optimizing key to securing that interview?
Yes, optimization is key to ensure your resume can pass through those automated systems, meaning those applicant tracking systems recruiters use, and also makes your resume more digestible and scannable for the recruiter's eyes. So you oftentimes, and this is not the case, we've heard recruiters come into our office and speak to students and say they look at every resume themselves first. I think a lot of federal agencies do. A lot of those big corporations you may be applying to, they have applicant tracking systems. So you've got to get your resume through that software so it can get into the hands of someone who's actually going to make a decision.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We've seen a couple of comments and questions about different types of resumes, but can you let us know if we need to use a different type of resume when applying for a federal job?
Yes, absolutely. So applying for a federal job looks very different from a corporate job. When applying for a federal job, you must use a federal resume. It's an absolute. The good news is though that the federal government has a great resume builder that you should actually use on usajobs.gov. And that's where you both use the resume builder and apply to those federal jobs. But if you need more assistance with that, we have created a module to help you navigate the federal job search. And we also have a federal job search certified career advisor as well, who's an expert in helping our students and alumni navigate that federal job search. But quick answer to your question, yes, use a different resume for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So a couple more questions that I have for you, then we'll kind of get into the questions that the students in the chat have. But how can you reference the job description to optimize your resume for specific roles?
Yes, I love this question. So I'm old school, but print off your resume, print off the job description, take a highlighter and start to look at the job description and highlight the key skills and qualifications that the recruiter is highlighting on the job description and see if that's integrated on your resume in any capacity. And if it's not, and if you possess those skills, put them in that resume document of yours. You really want to focus on those keywords, those responsibilities that are emphasized, and then tailor, there it is. I swear we've said this 100 times, but tailor your resume by incorporating that language and aligning your relevant experience. You want to emphasize those critical skills. You want to utilize those strong action verbs that we've been talking about and the quantifiable achievements. And ultimately, like resume optimization is so valuable, especially in today's competitive job market. It's so valuable because it does increase your chances of passing through those applicant tracking systems like what Rebecca was referencing earlier, and really ultimately capturing the attention of the hiring managers and the recruiters. And so by tailoring that resume and optimizing your resume to the job, you do demonstrate that, you are a strong fit for that specific opportunity. And that also significantly boosts your likelihood of landing an interview.
So well said. Thank you so much, Nicole. Before we wrap up, I'd love to briefly touch on a hot topic, especially this year, and that's AI. So how is AI used in the resume screening process by employers?
Yes. AI, recruiters are using AI to improve efficiency and decrease their own time to hire of candidates. So AI is used extensively in the resume screening process through the ways that we mentioned today, those applicant tracking systems. ATS can quickly scan resumes for keywords, analyze education to ensure it meets the minimum qualifications of the job. And so it really speeds up the process. But it is not a flawless system. Ideally, in a perfect world, AI is also supposed to help reduce bias in the resume screening process. So it can help in that regard if done correctly. So ATS, those applicant tracking systems driven by ATI, can also help, from what we've seen, better match candidates to other job postings. So maybe you applied to one job with the organization, that applicant tracking system or AI can say, actually, what we're seeing, I think they'd be a better fit for this role. So there can be some advantages when recruiters are using it. And it gives recruiters a better idea of how to write job descriptions because it's giving them the data of everyone who's applying to their positions, and then also helps them evaluate career paths of who's coming into their organization and where are they going.
Those are great tips. Thank you for the information, Rebecca. One more AI question. What are some common AI-based resume scanning pitfalls that candidates should avoid?
Yes, so you must be careful when navigating those pesky ATS systems. However, we do have a few tips to help you navigate them. Like we mentioned, don't use text boxes, tables, or images in your resume. That can also include your picture. Ensure you tailor and optimize your resume for each position you apply to. Another one we didn't mention today, I don't think, was avoid using abbreviations or acronyms. Instead, spell those out. And finally, always check your resume for spelling and grammar errors. And better yet, like Nicole said, have someone else, that second pair of eyes, make sure you do not have any spelling or grammatical errors on your resume.
Great tips. Thank you so much. Thank you both for all of these amazing tips and tricks. I know this was a lot, but I would love for this video to become an incredible resource when prepping resumes in the future. In addition, we will be adding a few resources in the chat soon, so look out for those and bookmark them to review later. The resources we'll be sharing will be a UAGC resume module and a military career track, which will include some details on those federal resumes that they talked about. And additionally, if you didn't know, we have a whole playlist on our YouTube channel from our career services team members helping with some important information, and we'll post that link in the chat too. But now I'd love to jump into that chat and ask any questions that any of you might have for Rebecca and Nicole here. And don't forget, if you're chatting in the comment section on Facebook, then you'll have a chance to win that tote bag that we talked about. So good luck. So the first question I have for you from the chat is from Caroline Brown. If you finished your BA years ago, does it age you to include the year of graduation?
Rebecca,
That's a tough one.
I know.
Dump you all.
It's a fabulous question. It really is. And I think it depends on the individual. It's usually a case by case basis when we talk to students about it. It depends on how long ago it was. This is my personal opinion. I do think it's best on your resume to be as honest as possible. And it gives recruiters pause when information is missing, like dates. It makes them wonder. And so I probably would add the dates.
Me too.
On your graduation. Nicole, how do you feel?
I agree. I 100% like second everything that you were saying. Because also it's a part of your story, like it's a part of who you are. It's a part of where you've been. And like, a lot of times I work with students who did get their bachelor's degree years ago, and then they want to come back to UAGC and get their master's degree now. And they've like gained a lot of valuable experience within those dates and within those timeframes. So I definitely think that highlighting the dates actually could maybe add to your resume. So I agree with Rebecca on everything that she said. Definitely, I would include it on there for sure.
Great question, Caroline. Thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing. Jessica Wilson's in the chat, or Wilkins, I'm sorry, says, do you have to put your GPA on your resume?
No.
Mm-mm. You don't have
No.
to. I mean, if it's something that you're proud of, like if you have a solid GPA and you're so proud of it, like you absolutely can, but it's not necessarily a requirement, in my opinion.
Cool. Good info. Hope that helps, Jessica. Great question. Matt King says, where's a great place to apply for a data entry job? Any feedback for that?
We have, I don't know if you've been in there yet, but we have Handshake. Right now there's between 25,000 and 30,000 jobs in Handshake all across the nation, especially if you're looking to break into data entry. Was it data entry? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, data entry. There are going to be some great roles on there to start off as a jumping point.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great question, Matt. I hope that helps. Gloria has a good question. What about cover letters? Can we integrate some of our skills in the cover letter when one is requested?
Yes. So first of all, I like a lot of times people are like, oh, our cover letter is kind of like being outdated. But in my opinion, I think it enhances your application because like we were saying, like with the resume, you're wanting to keep it to 1 to 2 pages, but the cover letter does a great job of you take the skills that you have listed on that resume, and then you can provide concrete examples of how you've utilized those skills on the cover letter. So we have phenomenal resources in career services. We have like a cover letter structure, cover letter samples that you can reference. A good rule of thumb is you have like your intro paragraph from the cover letter, and then the second paragraph is like really going into detail about how you've leveraged those skills in the past, and then you wrap up the cover letter. So that's like a very brief overview of what the cover letter structure is, but reach out to us. We have some great resources on it for sure.
Definitely reach out to the team. I know we're super close on time, so this is a little lightning round, but I do want to get through some of these really great questions. Matt King says, what about adding military awards and certifications?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Please do that. And then I would also connect with your career advisor here to help you highlight how you can make it make more sense to maybe a corporate or civilian recruiter.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. Gloria says, how do we reach out to a career advisor?
There are many ways. So you could reach out to our team, our email, careerservices@uagc.edu, or go into Handshake like what Rebecca was referencing in your student portal, and you can actually schedule a career coaching appointment through Handshake with your assigned career advisor and get on our calendars.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we put that email in the chat. So careerservices@uagc.edu. Kendrick, great question. Do you believe that bad formatting like spacing, etc., is as big of an issue as grammatical errors?
Yes. Yes. Because they're not even going to check for grammatical errors if the spacing's off. Like that's your first impression right there.
Yeah. And also, I know we're doing a quick lightning round, but also as a recruiter, I actually had a student who did not have good formatting, and it went through the applicant tracking system that we were using, and it made it even worse because the formatting wasn't consistent. So I did just want to like put that in there. So yes, formatting is very important.
Great question, Kendrick. Very important. Stacia says, when or should a resume be more than one page? Also a great question.
More than 10 years of relevant work experience, you can go into that second page.
Perfect answer. Gloria says, for those of us who have returned to school later in life, how far back should we list our experience?
A good question.
It depends. So the quick answer is it depends on if the work experience is relevant to the job you're applying to. And if it's not, and it was 15 years ago, drop it.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, like if you're linking your LinkedIn profile, kind of like what Rebecca was talking about earlier, or like your e-portfolio on your like resume, there's really no amount of limit that you have in terms of space on like LinkedIn or your e-portfolio. So you can even include like relevant experience there if needed as well. So
perfect. two questions in one here that are kind of related. Hey, Stacy, thank you so much for joining. So Stacy and Carla both would like you to repeat the information about the Word template for resumes that they can find.
Yes, so you can find those. So don't use the ones from the internet is the short answer. And then go into Handshake through your student portal. There is a resource library in Handshake, and that's where you will find some sample resumes that you can use.
Perfect. Last question here that I have is from Natalia. Natalia was on a call, so we may have covered this, but she's asking when including college information on your resume, would it be okay to include honor societies that you're a part of?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it shows, like what we were saying before, it shows your interest, you know, that you're involved, you're very involved, you have strong time management skills, you obviously have these amazing honors that you want to talk about. It could also be a great talking point to have when you get that interview with the recruiter as well. So yes, absolutely include that on your resume for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. Amazing lightning round. Before I let you go, I would love to announce our winners for this fancy little tote bag here. Let me show it again.
It's so cute. I love it.
So congratulations to the following 5 people for being randomly selected to win that. Ali Halverson, Carla Sumler, Via Milkins, Kendrick Brown, and Stacia Friday. So yay, congratulations.
Yay. That's
If you
awesome.
those 5 people called and would like to claim your prize, just send us a quick email to contests with an S at the end at uagc.edu with your full name and physical address, and we will be more than happy to get those out to you. Don't worry, we'll get that email in the chat as well. But this was so informative and so much fun. Rebecca and Nicole, thank you so much. Do either of you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to wrap up with? Nicole, you probably have a fun little tip that kind of wraps everything together. One little thing to remember if you don't remember anything else.
I would just say, you know, if you are like struggling to put like your resume together and you don't know where to start, reach out to Career Services. That's what we're here for. We're here to support you in any way possible. Email us your resume, schedule a coaching appointment. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you with that so that you're feeling your most confident self going into this competitive job market.
Love that. Tailor your resume.
Taylor.
That's what I was looking forward to. Taylor resume. Thank you again so much for being here and offering your invaluable advice. I always have such a great time with both of you. And thank you all on Facebook for being here with us today. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Career Services if you need help in the future. Again, you can contact them at careerservices@uagc.edu, or you can call them at 866-974-5700 with the extension 20057. And if you're grabbing your pen, don't worry, we'll get that in the chat for you too. But thank you all so much again. Have a great week, and bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.